When Wei Jingsong burned me alive, I heard his inner voice. Every time I serve you in bed, you make me feel extremely disgusted. If I didn't imagine you as Princess Jining, in this new life, my father will give me marriage again. I knelt before His Highness, my eyes calm. My sister Jining is a woman of great virtue and kindness. She and Lord Wei are a match made in heaven. Wei Jingsong, who is always calm and composed, accidentally knocked over the wine glass and asked with red eyes, "What did you say?"
1.
I was pierced by thousands of arrows, and my death was not a pretty one. The sharp sound of arrows kept piercing my eardrums. A large part of my chest cavity was empty. All the blood in my body was about to drain out, and there was no place that didn't hurt. I am most afraid of pain. 10 steps away, my concubine stood under a plum tree and watched the execution. The flying red plum blossoms make the young man in black clothes look as white as jade. I moved my lips silently. Wei Jingsong, do you regret it? To this day, I don't even dare to ask if he has ever been attracted to me, even for a moment, because this ill-fated relationship between Wei Jingsong and I was entirely my own will. We have been married for 10 years, and even when we were driven by lust in bed, Wei Jingsong never said he loved me. With my help, he gradually gained power. Now he has colluded with the imperial sister Jining and sent me to the rack with his own hands. This is also my retribution. The people watching the execution applauded and said, I, Qin Baojia, am cruel and brutal, disrespectful to my elders, and careless about human life. I deserve to be chopped into pieces and executed alive for public display. But Wei Jingsong, is this really the case? I saw the raging fire burning my body clean. Even the dogs on their way to Beijing would want to spit on it if they passed by. The emperor's younger sister Jining pulled at Wei Jingsong's scarlet official robe and said softly, "My sister has done many evil things in her life. This is what she deserves." Wei Jingsong glanced at the execution ground, and an inexplicable emotion flashed through his dark eyes. Qin Baojia, you are as despicable as an ant. I've never liked you. From a distance, I caught a glimpse of a man in red rushing to the execution ground. My consciousness gradually faded away. It was great. Finally, I wouldn't have to feel the pain.
2.
I had a very long dream. In my dream, it seemed as if countless wronged spirits were seeking my life. They shouted, "Poor Master Wei, who was so handsome and charming, was humiliated by the hands of the eldest princess, Qin Baojia. Qin Baojia, what do you rely on?" When I opened my eyes again, the whole city was covered with snow. I stood on the long street and saw the brilliant lights of the capital. The New Year's fireworks exploded in the sky. A little kid running by on the side of the road pulled my cape and said with a wink, "Happy New Year, miss. May everything go well for you." Sueju, who was standing beside him, took out some change from her purse and sent the child away with a smile. Seeing me in a daze, Sueju asked in a low voice, "Princess, are you angry?" Recalling my past life, I felt a chill deep in my soul. I shook my head subconsciously. Yes, I was born again. Reborn to the long street where I picked up Wei Jingsong. In the previous life, New Year's Eve banquet, I said I was drunk and wanted to go back to the princess's mansion to rest early, but I took my maid Sueju with me to go to the folk house to see the lanterns. It was on this night that I rescued Wei Jingsong, who had fainted in the snow. From then on, my 10-year-long entanglement and torment with him began. Sueju held an umbrella and said hesitantly, "Princess, there seems to be someone in front." My breath caught, and I shivered even more violently. In the distance, a man with his robe slightly open was lying in the snow. On the jade-white chest, there were traces of blood that had not yet dried, and the scarlet and white splashes had a very broken beauty. I clenched my fingers tightly and suddenly remembered my previous life. I had been married to Wei Jingsong for 2 years, and I had already become notorious. All the ladies in the capital felt sorry for him. Unfortunately, Wei Jingsong was a handsome and unrivaled man and a perfect match for Princess Jining, but he was humiliated by the eldest princess Qin Baojia. Since God has given me a chance to start over, this time I wish him and the imperial sister Jining to get married soon. I turned around expressionlessly and said, "Let's go. This is none of your business. You should just ignore it." Sueju was about to say something, but was stopped by my look. There was a rustling sound behind me. I don't know if it was my illusion, but it seemed like a burning gaze was fixed on my back. 3. In the early morning, green bamboo helps me wash and dress. Princess, the unconscious man we saw on the long street last night turned out to be the eldest son of Minister Wei. I looked closely at the woman in the bronze mirror. She had red lips and pretty teeth. She was at the age when she was lustful and admired young girls. Of course I know what Sueju said. In his previous life, although Wei Jingsong was the eldest son of the Wei family, he was not liked by Wei Shangshu. His biological mother died early, and he lived in a miserable situation in the mansion, being treated worse than a slave. On New Year's Eve, Wei Jingsong was framed by his stepmother and was poisoned and fainted on the street. Sueju said, "My sister Jining went to Sheng'an Street to see the lanterns last night, just like me. But she took the eldest son of Wei back to the palace. This morning, concubine Chu ordered her to enter the palace, and after a reprimand, she was confined to Chonghua Garden to reflect on her actions." Sueju patted her chest, still feeling nervous. Madame Chu was really angry. "Fortunately, it was not you, princess, who was meddling in such trivial matters last night. I remember in my last life, when I brought Wei Jingsong back, concubine Chu said that I was kind-hearted. Why is he so reluctant to praise his own daughter? I went to Chonghua Garden, and no one in the palace dared to stop me. Jane." I called to her through the carved window. Chun Jining pushed open the window, revealing a haggard face. She whispered, "Sister, am I really wrong?" Seeing that I didn't answer, she reached out and grabbed my sleeve, crying and begging, "Royal sister, can you help me take care of Master Wei?" In my previous life, I always thought that my sister Jining was weak and unable to take care of herself, so I protected her in every way. But after I became a prisoner, she stood on the platform and said to me word by word, "Princess Huan Chen Baojia disrespected her elders and took human life lightly. She should be chopped into pieces and displayed alive. I pity her because she is a blood relative and cannot bear to impose such a cruel punishment." Chun Jining enumerated my crimes in detail in front of the public, listing 17 in total. Finally, she whispered in my ear, "You competed with me to be the one to take brother Jingsong. It's a good deal for you to be pierced by thousands of arrows." It turns out that they had been secretly colluding for a long time, and I was the only one who was kept in the dark like a fool for 10 years. Inside the window, Chun Jining saw me suddenly smile and looked a little uneasy. "Royal sister, young Master Wei is handsome and a fairy-like figure. Mother has confined me today and will not allow him to stay in the princess's residence. Now only royal sister can help me. As long as he is well, Jining has nothing else to ask for." I raised my eyebrows. Chun Jining really knows how to control me. Everyone knows that Princess Huan Chen Baojia is fond of beautiful women. 5 years ago on Juyan Terrace, I rescued a young man from an aristocratic family who had contradicted his father. It was originally out of good intentions, but for some reason, within a few days, rumors spread that I, Chen Baojia, was attracted by the young man's appearance and wanted to choose him as my concubine. The young man from aristocratic family married his bride overnight. In my previous life, I just laughed off such rumors. Who would have thought that they would become more and more serious, and eventually become the one that nailed me to the pillar of shame? My notoriety may have been fueled by my good sister. I leaned down and stared into her anxious eyes. "Jining, your sister has no other hobbies except for beautiful women. The sickly girl you brought back is not what I like." Having said this, he walked away. I was just skeptical at first, but the Shangshu's wife wouldn't be so stupid. On New Year's Eve, he drove out his eldest son and poisoned him in the street. Once this matter becomes a big deal, the historians will certainly impeach Minister Wei for treating his legitimate son harshly. In my previous life, I rescued Wei Jingsong and took care of him for 3 days without taking off my clothes. I wanted to ask for an explanation for him, but was stopped by Wei Jingsong, who woke up slowly. He said, "Although my mother forced me to this point, I know filial piety and do not want my parents to be criticized." I thought he was a noble gentleman. Now that I think about it, my first encounter with Wei Jingsong on the long street seemed like a plot carefully laid out by someone with ulterior motives. Even if I didn't come to see Qin Jining today, I'm afraid concubine Chu would find ways to get me to Chonghua Garden. 4. I didn't expect that this matter would reach the ears of my father, and he was furious. The trap that concubine Chu set for me failed to gain anything, and ended up losing the rice. By mistake, I ended up sending my own daughter into the trap. In the afternoon, the steward of the princess's mansion reported to me that the eldest son of the Shangshu mansion was outside the princess's mansion and wanted to meet me. Outside the mansion gate, Wei Jingsong's robe dragged on the ground. The snow in Shangjing fell on his thin shoulders, forming a thick layer. Noticing me coming, Wei Jingsong slowly raised his head, and his eyes met mine. "I have met Princess Pajia." Unfortunately, I didn't show the same surprised expression as when we first met in my previous life. He knelt outside the mansion for a long time. He must have something to ask of me. Sueju beside her couldn't bear it any longer. "Princess, how about asking Master Wei to stand up first?" I glanced at Sueju's suddenly compassionate eyes and looked at Wei Jingsong. "Are you worthy of calling me by my name?" Wei Jingsong was stunned. "What will it take for your highness to save Princess Jining and save her from your majesty's harsh punishment?" He knelt forward, his face becoming paler. "I heard that your highness and Princess Jining have a deep sisterly love. If your highness is willing to clarify for Princess Jining, it was you who saved me on the long street that night. What do you want to do?" I took a step forward. "I am willing to be the princess's charioteer," he said calmly, his eyes drooping quietly, but deliberately bringing out an ambiguous meaning. "You'd do anything for her?" "Yes," he answered promptly and clearly. I remember that in my previous life, after I married Wei Jingsong, he begged me in the same way. "Jiangnan is in chaos, and Princess Jining has been living in the palace for a long time. How can a delicate woman like you go south to train?" At that time, jealousy filled my chest, and I summoned Wei Jingsong to have sex with me that night. The wine sent by the palace maids has the effect of boosting mood. On the couch, Wei Jingsong's long eyelashes trembled violently. He begged me again and again to go south on Jinning's behalf, just like today. My thoughts gradually drifted away from the depths of my memory, and I stared at the man in front of me. "Bring me my whip." The housekeeper handed me a whip with barbed wire. I played with it twice and suddenly laughed. "Wei Jingsong, anyone in this world can show mercy to you except me, Chen Baojia." I showed no mercy and whipped him on the back, and his thin robe was instantly stained with blood. With just one whip, Wei Jingsong coughed up blood. He put his hand to his lips and said, "I hope your highness will grant me your blessing. Maybe it hurts a lot, but compared to the pain of being pierced by thousands of arrows, what is this little pain?" I remember when I died, the famous scholars in the capital talked about Wei Jingsong like this. The eldest son of the Shangshu mansion, Wei, lost his mother at an early age and had a rough life. He was humiliated by the eldest princess, Chen Baojia. After 10 years of hard work, he finally became the chief minister of Dian. In this life, without me, Chen Baojia, to block the way for him, Wei Jingsong would probably be able to rise to the top with his abilities. 5. The next day after the morning court session, my father summoned Wei Jingsong and me to the Taiha Hall. Chen Jining also knelt before his highness. I blamed Jining wrongly. "I heard that Baojia fell in love with this young Master Wei at first sight. Did you let your sister take care of it for you?" Concubine Chu beside him laughed softly. "Baojia is just a child after all. She can't keep secrets, and Jining is even more stupid. She only knows how to hide for her sister. Now that the truth is out, why don't you, Your Majesty, arrange a marriage for these lovers?" But my father frowned and looked at me, waiting for my answer. Concubine Chu couldn't wait to ask the eunuch to bring the fine wine and give it to Wei Jingsong and me. "Whatever Baojia wants, your father will approve it." Praising and killing is a trick often used by the Princess of Chu. I know that although Wei Jingsong is the son of the Shangshu at this time, he has no real power. For me, Chen Baojia, this is not a good marriage. But I also know that if I really want him, my father will give him to me. He was so tolerant of me because I resembled my deceased mother, the former Queen of Dian. The Emperor and the Empress were a young couple, supporting each other for 13 years. But in my previous life, because of this favor, I did a lot of foolish things and eventually exhausted my father's indulgence towards me. In the prison of my previous life, my father turned his back to me and didn't even hesitate to look at me. Chen Baojia, I am extremely disappointed in you. That time in prison was the last time I saw my father. After he was released from prison, he fell seriously ill and all court affairs were left to Qin Jining. The Chu family also used this opportunity to control the political situation, and my father's orders could no longer leave the Taya Hall. I don't know whether my father will still have a deep hatred for me when he is about to die. What does Jining think about this? I suddenly looked at Qin Jining, who was kneeling beside me. Even if it was concubine Chu who arranged it, she would not be willing to give up her beloved. Chen Jining suppressed the pain in her eyes and smiled with all her strength. How dare Jining compete with the emperor? Wei Jingsong remained calm and composed as he stood in the hall. The eunuch handed him the wine given by concubine Chu, and when he presented it to me, I brushed it away with my hand. I knelt slowly before His Highness, my face calm. My sister Jining is a woman of great talent and kindness. She and Lord Wei are a perfect match made in heaven. I already have someone I like in my heart, so I won't compete with anyone else. I don't know when Qin Jining met Wei Jingsong, but since Wei Jingsong and I had just gotten married in my previous life, he had always protected Qin Jining, so they must have known each other earlier. Who are you fond of? Father became interested. Son of Lord Shen, Shen Yunjin. As soon as I finished speaking, Wei Jingsong, who was standing beside me, accidentally knocked over his wine cup and cried out, "What did you say?" Nonsense. How can you and Shen Yunjin be together? Concubine Chu's sharp voice rang out in Taihe Palace. Wei Jingsong concealed the strange look in his eyes. I glanced at concubine Chu thoughtfully. She realized that she had said something wrong and said with a smile, "Doesn't Wujia hate crude warriors who only know how to wield swords and guns the most?" I ignored her. My father said he would consider it for a few days and then give me an answer. The farce in Taihe Hall ended abruptly. 6. I took out Shen Yunjin to shut concubine Chu up, not without thinking about it. At that time, the princes were in turmoil, but my father was still guarding his mines. He saved Prince Shen by giving him a meal. Prince Shen is ambitious and wants his father to join him in conquering the world. My father is timid, and he said clearly that he would only give money, not life. Afterwards, when the country was unified, Prince Shen was unwilling to inherit the throne. He said that his deceased wife was buried here, and he was willing to guard the border to comfort her soul. If you think about it carefully, Shen Yunchen and I can be considered childhood sweethearts. When they parted at the border that year, Shen Yunjia was just a young man. The sky was filled with yellow sand, and he waved at me from his horse. Chen Baojia, if you have no one to marry you in the future, I will condescend to marry you. And how did I respond to him? Chen Baojia, will never marry a crude warrior. In my previous life, I thought that after so many years, the little feelings that Shen Yunjia had hidden towards me had long since disappeared. But when I was imprisoned and everyone was calling for my death, Shen Yun at the border rebelled. In just 7 days, they captured several cities. He handed over a letter stating that he was willing to surrender, but only in exchange for one person, Princess Huan Chen Baojia. Unfortunately, Qin Jining is more afraid of saving my life than anyone else. I couldn't wait to be sentenced to death in public. Shen Yunjia and I made a wrong move after all. 7. My father still agreed with my wish and selected this recipe. A few days later, Lord Shen Xiaoho received the imperial edict and went to the capital. Meeting again seems like a lifetime ago. In the flower hall of the princess's mansion, Shen Yunjin stood tall and slender with her back to me. He still likes to wear red clothes. At that time, Prince Shin went on many campaigns and left him in Anreo City. At the end of the year, there were many relatives and friends, and Shin Yunjin's identity needed to be kept secret. My father told others that he was the son of his friend. However, our playmates continued to provoke us. In winter, heavy snow covered the entire Anreo. They threw snowballs at him and mocked Shin Yunxie as the bastard of the Qin family. Shin Yunjin was of course very angry, but he still remembered his father's teachings and endured it. I rode on the wall and threw a snowball at the troublemaker. "I'm talking to you, idiot." Afterwards, Shin Yunjin scolded me severely. He is a head taller than me and always considers himself my elder brother. "Qin Baojia, do you know you are wrong?" I stared at the crispy duck wrapped in oil paper in his arms and nodded my head rapidly. Shin Yunjin felt uncomfortable with my gaze and quickly handed it to me. "Eat quickly and accompany me to the training ground to practice swordplay this afternoon." While I was reveling in the past, Shin Yunjin appeared before me without me noticing. He stretched out his hand, waved it in front of me, and said jokingly, "You've grown up, Qin Baojia." Seeing that I didn't say anything, Shin Yunyan straightened his expression and asked, "What are you thinking about?" I looked up at him and said, "Father wants to arrange a marriage for you and me." Shin Yunyan was startled, then pretended to be nonchalant and said with a smile, "I know that you, Qin Baojia, will never marry a crude warrior like me. Since you are unwilling, I can tell His Majesty." Seeing him about to leave, I called him in a low voice, "Shin Yunjin." He paused. "I'm not unwilling." Shin Yunyan turned around, his eyes piercing. "Qin Baojia, what has provoked you?" My eyes fell on his red lips. "Shin Qing's lips are very beautiful. I wonder what it feels like to kiss them." Shin Yunja froze for a moment, his breathing becoming a little disordered. He approached me step by step, until he stood in front of me, and then he said hoarsely, "Are you serious?"
8.
Sueju muttered, "The food these days isn't spicy. Why is the princess's mouth so swollen?" She searched through all the drawers and cabinets for some medicine to reduce the swelling. "My marriage to Shin Yunchen is scheduled for 1 month later." He said, "Qin Baojia, you said it yourself. Once the arrow is shot, it cannot be retrieved. In this lifetime, you will never promise it to anyone else." Shin Yunja went back to the border to make preparations, saying that he wanted to prepare a surprise for me. The emperor sighed that the Shin family was full of romantic people. To be fair, I feel a little guilty toward Shin Yunjin. I just don't hate this guy. Prince Shin guards the border, and Shin Yunjin is Prince Shin's only son, so he will definitely inherit the Shin family army in the future. With this marriage, I will have a better chance of winning when I compete with the Chu family behind concubine Chu in the future. In order to calm down the previous incident, my father awarded Wei Jingsong a 5th-rank official position as a counselor. This was quite unexpected to me, as I thought concubine Chu would use this opportunity to help Qin Jining and Wei Jingsong get together.
9.
After the Lantern Festival banquet, on the way back home, I saw Cui Xiangyi, the Minister of History, and Wei Jingsong drinking in a tea house. In a corner by the window, the two of them were toasting each other. I suddenly thought of my previous life, when Cui Xiangyi impeached me for private killing in the court. It turned out that Wei Jingsong and his conspiracy had already started at this time. I ordered the driver to leave, but Wei Jingsong's attendant came running and stopped my carriage, saying that his son had something important to discuss with me. In the private room on the 2nd floor of the tea house, Cui Xiangyi had already disappeared. I saw the closed window and asked with a frown, "Where's Mr. Cui?" Wei Jingsong smiled faintly and said, "There is no such thing as Lord Cui. Princess must have seen it wrong." After he washed a round of tea, he handed me the newly brewed tea. I didn't touch the cup of tea, I just looked at him calmly. "What do you want to discuss with me, Master Wei?" Princess Pajia seems to have become much smarter. Wei Jingsong's voice suddenly turned cold, "But you shouldn't come to see me alone." My eyes paused, and when I saw the newly lit incense stick on the small stove, I was about to get up and leave. The next moment, my whole body was paralyzed and I couldn't move. I forced out a few words from the corner of my lips. "Wei Jingsong, this is Shangjing. What do you want to do?" He walked closer to me, opened my collar with his index finger, and chuckled. Princess Pajia, tell me, I left a mark on your body. What will your good husband think when he sees it on the wedding night? Wei Jingsong took off a sharp hairpin from my head. The head of the hairpin floated on my shoulder, causing my skin to shiver. I left the guards outside the tea house just to give some respect to Cui Xiangyi, an old minister, but I didn't expect that this action would put me in danger. At this time, Suizhu opened the door and asked, Princess. Suizhu saw everything that was happening before her. She froze in place. Wei Jingsong seemed to understand people's hearts and smiled as he watched Suizhu's face turn red in an instant. The princess is still young and doesn't understand people's hearts. I am only helping her to see her own feelings. Don't be afraid. Just pretend that you didn't see anything. After tonight, I will let you enjoy all the glory. Wei Jingsong paused and said, If you want a title, I will give it to you. Suizhu glanced at me and quietly retreated. I was no longer able to resist, and Wei Jingsong ordered his followers to retreat. Everything was under control. Wei Jingsong chuckled and said, Chen Baojia, your maid is better taste than you. Wei Jingsong was certain that I would not disregard the reputation of my daughter's family and let what happened tonight become known, which would definitely bring me great shame. And after Shen Yunjia and I get married, there will be a rift between us because of this matter. Inside the room, Wei Jingsong coughed, and seeing that I didn't look as frightened as he imagined, he sneered, Chen Baojia, I suddenly changed my mind. Do you think Shen Yunyan would want a body that is so broken and useless? What I had spent so much time and effort to desire in my previous life now makes me feel nauseous. I actually started to think about the question he mentioned. If the Shen family was gone, what bargaining chips would I have? Look, even a delicate girl like Chen Baojia has to learn to weigh the pros and cons. Wei Jingsong carried me to the bamboo couch in the private room, with a look of sarcasm gradually deepening in his eyes. I clenched my fingers, but at this moment, the door was suddenly pushed open again. Suizhu held a heavy earthenware jar at her arms and smashed it towards Wei Jingsong's head. You are so presumptuous. Are you worthy of touching the princess? Wei Jingsong had not expected this sudden change. He covered his bleeding forehead and looked at Suizhu in amazement. He thought he could understand people's hearts, and when he first saw Suizhu, he noticed her embarrassed feelings towards him. Suizhu's chest rose and fell violently. My princess likes whoever she wants to like. Who do you think you are to help her see clearly? You little bastard, you are such a sickly child. My princess is kind-hearted, but she doesn't know the truth about farmers and snakes in this world. She was abused by someone as black-hearted as you. She pulled out the silver hairpin from her head and stabbed it into Wei Jingsong's shoulder, still not satisfied with her hatred. How dare you force the princess to death? Suizhu carried me on her back and coaxed me in a low voice. Don't be afraid, princess. Suizhu will take you back to the palace. The guards at the princess's mansion knew that I was in the tea house and would not dare to enter without permission. Suizhu was outnumbered and had left the tea house without making a sound. In fact, she was going to ask the guards to deal with Wei Jingsong's followers. She took my reputation into consideration and went back into the room alone.
10.
My father has no children, and everyone says that whoever marries me will control half of the Qin family's empire. Since Shen Yunjin and I got engaged, this rumor has become even more widespread. Concubine Chu whispered a little. She said to her father, It is probably because Baojia acted absurdly, which caused dissatisfaction among the court officials. The rumors may not be groundless. I think it would be good if there was someone around to advise you. My father took these words to heart. This was the case in my previous life. At that time, I had already picked up Wei Jingsong. After concubine Chu whispered in father's ear, he not only appointed Wei Jing as his consort, but also gave me 9 male concubines. In my previous life, when I declined this matter, my father was drinking and having fun in the bamboo pond. When he saw me barging in, he looked unhappy and said, Chen Baojia, the situation has changed. My Chen family's kingdom cannot be ruined by a man. The drunk father shook his 10 fingers and said, At least this amount. At that time, the concubines sent by the court officials were all sons who were not valued by their families, so that they would not have to openly disobey their fathers. Although there is no saying that princes cannot hold official positions in this dynasty, if the concubines entered the court as officials, they would be criticized. In the previous life, Qin Jining and concubine Chu used this to instigate a fire in my backyard, and everyone was indignant. In the eyes of those concubines, even if they are not valued by their father in a mansion, it is better than being a concubine of me, Qin Baojia. I only want Wei Jingsong, so I'll leave those concubines aside. A few days later, rumors spread among the people that Princess Huan Qin Baojia was a pervert who enjoyed humiliating her lovers. With the help of those concubines who personally added fuel to the fire, the rumor was confirmed. In addition, I was deeply in love with Wei Jingsong, but he took advantage of the fact that I went south to suppress bandits on behalf of Qin Jining and killed all these lovers. His eyes were gouged out, his stomach was pierced, and his neck was strangled. The death was extremely horrific, but not a single piece of news was leaked before I came back. 9 corpses were lying neatly in the backyard of the princess's mansion. When I came back from my trip, I was so shocked by the tragic scene I saw that I vomited several times. Wei Jingsong coaxed me, saying that he was just jealous. He resorted to lynching and caused the death of someone, and I took the blame for it. This also became one of the many crimes I listed in a joint letter written by Qin Jining and court officials later. 11. This time, concubine Chu did the same thing again. I received my father's order to enter the palace, but the eunuchs in the palace said that my father was waiting for me in the Dianxiang pool. I was led by the eunuch to the Dianxiang pool. Before my eyes, there was a hot spring with an intoxicating aroma that made one feel dizzy. Inside it, there were 9 men in completely undressed clothes. The female official beside concubine Chu smiled and said, "Concubine Chu has already advised His Majesty to select a young man of the right age." I interrupted her with a sneer. "I haven't even gotten married yet, but I've already welcomed my lover into the palace. What does concubine Chu think of the good temper of that border guard?" The female official did not answer, but introduced them one by one to me. The second son of the Deputy Minister of Public Administration. He has a handsome appearance, similar to Panan. Lieutenant General Zhao is 19 years old, of noble bearing, and has a deep affection for your highness. My eyes fell on the face of Lieutenant General Zhao. I didn't see the deep love in his heart, but I saw that he looked like he wanted to get rid of me as soon as possible. In the previous life, these 9 crouching dragons and phoenixes actively ruined my reputation outside, and in the end they ended up with their heads and bodies separated. I am thinking about how to get my father to take back his decision. A low laugh came from outside the palace. Let me see who is the one who loves her so deeply. Shen Yunjin entered the palace carrying a long sword. His eyes passed me and fell on the shocked face of the female official. He did not approach the hot spring, but leaned against the palace door, slowly wiping the sword in his hand. Shen Yunja's dark eyebrows were stained with wind and snow. Every time he wiped them, the cold light on the sword became colder. They wanted to make a hasty decision on the matter, but they forgot about the great achievements this young marquis had made at the border. The sword in his hand is called Chao Kei, and it has swallowed more than 1,000,000 bloods. Shen Yunjin held the sword and calmly looked at the people fleeing in the hot spring. Until there was no one in the hall, Shen Yunnua's face turned cold in an instant. I stepped back step by step and accidentally fell into the hot spring. I held onto the edge of the pool and raised my wet face. If I say they took the initiative, would you believe me? The hot soup made my cheeks burn. Shen Yunjin's eyes suddenly dimmed. He took off his outer robe, bent his knees and folded it beside the hot spring, stirring the water in the pool with his thin, powerful hands. "Qin Baojia, I know you don't like to follow those old rules and conventions. If you fall in love with someone in the future, please tell me." My eyes lit up. "You agree to this?" He smiled lazily and whispered in my ear, "I will give him a dignified death." I seem to have offended someone I shouldn't have. But maybe having a jealous husband is not such a bad thing.
12.
On the wedding day, I heard that concubine Chu was ill. My father personally officiated at the marriage between me and Shen Yunxia. Although Prince Shen was unable to come to the capital in person due to a leg disease, he still sent someone to deliver a generous gift. At the wedding, in full view of everyone, Shen Yunyan gave me a bow. The relief carving on yew wood is exquisite, and the bowstring is made from the tendons of a golden tiger that he hunted himself. This kind of thought alone is extremely rare. The whole house was in uproar. People in the capital had never seen such a gift for a new bride. Everyone speculated. This young Lord Shen must have married her because of the emperor's will. Shen Yunjin just stood in the hall, pretending not to hear anything. He waved and smiled at me. Chen Baojia, you're here. The scarlet wedding dress made his eyes sparkle. The bow in Shen Yunjin's hand is not made of gold, silver, pearls, or jade, nor is it a rare treasure. Only I remember that when I got married to Wei Jingsong in my previous life, I received this bow sent from the border. Along with it came a note. With just a few strokes, the characters are like the person himself, with a strong and sharp pen stroke. Chen Baojia, you have been unruly since you were a child and have offended too many people. Now that you are married, don't forget to learn some skills to support yourself. That year, in the Chun Mansion in Anreo City, Shen Yunjia can already shoot an arrow through a target from 100 paces away. I said the reason why I can't compare to him is because the bow in his hand is much better than mine. Shen Yunyan immediately gave me his bow, but I refused and said that only the best bow in the world would be worthy of me. He didn't expose my thoughts, but just smiled at me and said, Chen Baojia, you need to have a name when giving gifts. Then when I get married, you can give me a bow. I shook my hands nonchalantly. I only vaguely remember that when I said that, Shen Yunyan's beautiful eyes dimmed a little. Who would have thought that a joke from his youth would be remembered by him for so many years? Unfortunately, this bow was hidden in the princess's mansion in the previous life and was covered in dust for 10 years. After the ceremony, we lay on the wedding couch in our clothes. Shen Yunjin held his chin in his hand, thinking, I do have some suspicions. Your Majesty suspects that the Shen family has rebellious intentions, so he devised this plan and kept me in the capital as a hostage. I interrupted him without thinking. That's impossible. Father is not that cunning. My father has always been greedy and afraid of death. He didn't learn anything else from Prince Shen except to create a passionate persona for himself. After he succeeded to the throne, he would write secret letters to Prince Shen, who was guarding the border. My dear, have you written any poems in memory of my deceased wife recently? Please lend me a copy. The candlelight flickered, and Shen Yunjin suddenly looked at me seriously. Even so, I am willing to fall into the trap. I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, I returned from Jiangnan after suppressing banditry. Although everything went well, I was seriously ill due to the long journey when I arrived in Beijing. But my husband Wei Jingsong did not return home for several days. Until one day, Cueju stood in front of him and said accusingly, Your Highness's foot is injured, and he has had a high fever for several days. Where are you going now? Wei Jingsong then came to see me reluctantly. Seeing that I was indeed very ill, his cold black eyes did not show any emotion. Chen Baojia, you have already won the emperor's favor. What else do you want? Princess Jining has nothing, and you want to compete with her for even this little thing? It turned out that he had been busy for several days preparing a birthday gift for Qin Jining. Thinking of this, my tone suddenly became a little muffled. Shen Yunjin, I'm actually very easy to coax. I'm not a very bashful person. He paused while removing the ring from my hand, then leaned over and took my hand. Chen Baojia, I'm just afraid that you don't want to rely on me. There was a drizzle of rain outside the window. Shen Yunjia said that the good night was short, so why not try something more interesting? Until the red candles burned out and the sky suddenly brightened. Fortunately, this time, my reputation is not that bad. Shen Yunjin was not labeled a traitor. 13. A few days later, the incident of banditry in Jiangnan was brought before my father. The emperor had no son, so a minister suggested choosing one of the two princesses to go to the palace to appease the people. The court officials said that since it was Princess Huan's wedding banquet, it would be better for the second princess to go. This has always been the case. When troops are dispatched from the capital, the royal family members only have a title and will not lead the troops in person to dangerous places. Even the concubine, Chu, cannot be blamed. I remember the bandit suppression incident happened after Wei Jingsong, and I got married. Wei Jingsong asked me to go south on behalf of Jining. At that time, although I was angry with him, I thought that what Wei Jingsong said was true. Jining was delicate and weak, and it was really hard for her to travel such a long way. But I didn't expect that the campaign against bandits would be unprecedentedly successful. When I went there, only a few days later, Magistrate Liu had already led his troops to quell the bandit rebellion, and the number of bandits killed was as high as hundreds. In his memorial, he attributed all the credit to me. Later, when I was already a prisoner, Magistrate Liu came out again and said that there was a hidden story behind the suppression of the bandit rebellion that year. He said, Princess Huan was greedy for merit and reckless. She slaughtered innocent people and disguised their corpses as bandits in order to gain merit. At that time, I was being condemned by everyone, so no one would investigate the old case in detail. The memorials impeaching me, led by Cui Xiangyi, were sent to the Taihe Hall like snowflakes. It was not until Wei Jingsong came to see me in prison that I learned that the corpses that Magistrate Liu showed me were a group of civilians who discovered that he had embezzled disaster relief funds. That Governor Liu was of great importance. He was the brother of concubine Chu and a disciple of Duke Chu. The disaster relief funds from the imperial court were transferred from the Governor Liu to the Duke's mansion. As the officials protected each other, they had no one to turn to for help, so they had to write 100 letters in blood, preparing to go to the capital to sue Magistrate Liu. However, they were discovered by spies planted by Liu Zhizhou. When I set out south to Yaozhou, Governor Liu had confined the people to a deserted village and had soldiers guarding it for several days. It was not until the day I arrived that he sent someone to deliver white porridge. Those people had been starving for several days and died instantly after drinking porridge mixed with puffer fish poison. Magistrate Liu ordered his men to change the dead civilians into the bandits' clothes and reported to me that it was his clever plan that led to the capture of these bandits. That success came too easily. Later, when I was in prison, I asked Wei Jingsong, what if I hadn't agreed to your request and Qin Jining had gone there? Wei Jingsong did not answer me, but just gave me an intriguing smile. Then I understood. If Qin Jining had gone, then the deaths of those innocent people would have been her real achievements from beginning to end.
14.
This time, there was no pleading from Wei Jingsong, and I was not coerced by anyone. Of course, I can choose to hang myself high and avoid the unforeseen disaster in my previous life, or just give the credit to Qin Jining. But those people are, after all, the people of Dian. How can they be innocent? I personally went to ask my father for help, saying that Jining was of a weak character and might not be suited to long journeys, so I wanted to go south to quell the banditry on her behalf, and I took on this task. After a few days, because I was reluctant to leave, many court officials complained. Princess Huan was obsessed with the wealth and luxury of the capital and wanted achievements, but was greedy and afraid of death. Suizhu was indignant and told me in a tactful way the curses that were circulating in the capital. She was secretly worried. Princess, when are we going to Yaozhou? I don't know where the young marquis has been these days. Suizhu is really worried. They spread such bad news. I smiled, comforted her, and told her to wait a little longer. I know that once I leave Shangjing, the news of my departure will be sent to Yaozhou by the Duke of Chu via a first-class flying pigeon. They wanted to give me this gift as they did in their previous life, but they also had to make sure the bodies were fresh enough so that they could poison me on the day I arrived in Yaozhou so that they could conceal the truth. If I had gone one day later, those innocent people of Dian would have lived one day longer. 2 days later, I received a pigeon-shaped message from Xin Yunqin, and I finally felt relieved after being worried for many days. Only then did he give the order and prepare to set off for Yaozhou. 15. I met Xin Yunqin on the way, and as expected, he had brought people to rescue the civilians. We walked neither fast nor slow, pushing time to rush back to Kyoto. As soon as I arrived in the capital, A guard reported that the second princess, Jinjining, had organized a celebration banquet in my name and invited many nobles and celebrities from the capital. The maidservant beside Jinjining came to the princess's mansion to invite me. The witnesses and evidence of Magistrate Liu and Duke Chu's corruption are all outside the city. The truth will be revealed the next day. I'd like to see what she's trying to do by suddenly doing this. I took people to Jinjining's princess residence. In the main hall, a string music piece just stopped. Jinjining, who was sitting at the top, suddenly started to cry. My sister went south to suppress the rebellion of the bandits, and she was as brave as a beard, but Jining felt very unfair for her. When everyone heard her say this, they all looked curious. She pinched a corner of her dress and said in embarrassment, "Actually, Jining invited you all to this banquet because she wanted you to think about how to quell the rumors for my sister." I stood quietly outside the hall and listened to her fabricate an incident on Shengen Street where I was dragged into a dark alley and molested by a drunken lecher. Everyone sighed and sighed, but also looked doubtful. This is the first time I've heard of such a thing. I walked into the main hall slowly. In full view of everyone, Jinjining saw me, was slightly stunned, but quickly stood up. "Royal sister, have you heard everything? That man committed such a crime that he lost his appetite, and even wrote a letter of apology. He was arrested by Jin Ning, and is currently being held in Jin Ning's residence." I laughed. "You said he was drunk and did something immoral. If that was true, how did he know that I was Princess Huan after he sobered up?" Jining looked embarrassed, as if she had been considering for a long time before she said. Jining didn't believe it at first, but he made it very clear, and he also said that the princess had a red mole on her shoulder. My heart sank. Jining was so sure that such a secret would only be known to Wei Jingsong that day in the tea house. There were women in the main hall secretly looking at me. In fact, Jin Ning can't believe that this could happen. How about taking off your outer clothes and showing it to everyone to prove your innocence? Otherwise, Jin Ning is afraid that if this matter gets out, what will young Marquis Shin think? I was about to speak when someone suddenly put their arms around my waist from behind. Shin Yunjin was wearing a red dress and had her black hair tied up high. "The second princess is trying to slander my wife with just one unclear remark." In front of everyone, he smiled ostentatiously. Shin Yunjin is more terrifying when he laughs than when he doesn't laugh. There were mostly women in the hall, and no one dared to speak when his sinister eyes flashed across them. The red mole on the shoulder, how could I not know about such a secret? But I have also heard another interesting story from a few drunkards that the second princess does have a red mole on her shoulder. I couldn't help but side-glance slightly when I heard that. Shin Yunjin is a jerk who tells lies without hesitation. Jining's face turned pale and blue. "You are talking nonsense, I didn't do that at all." Shin Yunyan interrupted her with a sidelong glance. "Why? The second princess also wants to take off her clothes and prove her innocence in front of everyone." In public, Jining felt embarrassed and angry. He held my hand and said slowly, "Chen Baojia is not only the wife of my Shin family, but also the eldest princess of Dian. The person I, Shin Yunhua, love the most cannot stand the slightest injustice." After saying this, Shan Yunjin raised his hand to signal the guards behind him. "The second princess is talking nonsense. Considering that she is a woman, I will only give her 50 strokes of the cane as a warning to others." "How dare you, Shin Yunjin? You are so bold. This is Shangjing, not your Shin family camp." Jining panicked and stepped back. But the guards ignored her and dragged the man out in public. Outside, the sound of beatings accompanied by Jining's wails was extremely miserable. Shin Yunxuan looked around and asked everyone with a smile if they had any opinions. His right hand was already on the scabbard of the sword. Everyone could see the threat in his expression, and who would dare to object? Seeing that no one was saying anything, Shin Yunyan leaned over to my ear and said, "Chen Baojia, I didn't scare you, did I?" I shook my head. He was relieved and looked down at Jining, who was lying on the ground with her hairpins in disarray, and said, "My rules are rules." If the second princess is dissatisfied, she can go to His Majesty and cry tomorrow.
16.
The next day, concubine Chu cried and stopped her father, who had just left the court, demanding an explanation for Qinjining. She burst into tears and said that Shen Yunjin was a reckless man who, relying on his military achievements in guarding the border over the years, dared to beat the princess in public. Unexpectedly, her father told her to shut up and watch what her good brother did. The Duke of Chu was imprisoned for colluding with the prefect Liu and embezzling disaster relief funds. He was beheaded at the Meridian Gate 3 days later. The Chu family's biggest backer fell, the wall fell, and everyone pushed it down, and many people impeached them. In one day, many cases of Duke Chu's faction buying and selling official positions and forming cliques for personal gain were uncovered. Within 2 days, news came from the palace that Chen Jining had gone mad. It is said that she saw with her own eyes the Chu concubine hanged in the bedroom of Bowen Hall. The description was horrible, and she was frightened to the point of losing her mind. What a shame! I wanted to continue playing with her. A few days later, the princess's mansion received a visiting card from Minister Wei's wife. This was not the first time I had met Mrs. Wei. In the main hall, she drank a cup of tea and acted like a worried mother. She told me that a few days ago, Wei Jingsong, despite his sick body, sneaked into the second princess's residence, met Chen Jining once, and heard some crazy words. After returning home, he became even sicker. He has been even more distraught these 2 days and insists on seeing me. This makes me a little curious. I went to the Wei mansion and found that Wei Jingsong was recuperating in the plum garden in the backyard of the Wei mansion. Wei Jingsong's house was drafty on all sides and was even colder than outside. I walked to the couch and looked at Wei Jingsong, who was lying on the couch holding a purse in his hand. It looked familiar, but I couldn't remember where I had seen it. He was so sick that he was a little confused. When he noticed someone, he slowly opened his eyes. Seeing that it was me, Wei Jingsong was a little dazed at first and muttered incoherently, "Lies, everything is a lie." Later, he realized it was not an illusion. He struggled to get off the bed, but found himself sitting on the ground, looking quite helpless. However, he still held the purse in his hand and held it in front of me. "Princess Pajia, this is your purse, isn't it?" Seeing the embroidery on the purse, I frowned. I vaguely remember an old story. One early spring, my younger sister Zhenning came to see me outside the palace. She was still young at that time and had not yet left the palace. She told me, "There is a poetry gathering held by a famous scholar at Siwu Lake outside the city." The gathering lasted a long time, and the scholars stayed up all night. Zhenning wants to disguise herself as a man to watch it. Would you like to go with me, sister? I had already established my own government at that time and had no interest in such literary matters, so I gave her my token. Chen Jining was afraid of being blamed by concubine Chu, so she just said that she left the palace to play with me. I gave her a few of my guards and told her to return to the city tomorrow and enter the city under my name. People only know that I, Chen Baojia, am unruly. Even if this matter gets out, it will only add another ridiculous incident to me, but it is nothing. I sent Zhenning out of the city, but on the way back home, I met a young man who was bullied by several powerful young men from Shangjing. The young man was in tattered clothes and was beaten and kicked by them. His face was bruised and swollen, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. I didn't know at that time that Minister Wei had married a new wife and was afraid that his eldest son would cause trouble, so he sent him to live in a country village for a few months. Unexpectedly, the wicked servant bullied his master. Wei Jingsong escaped from the other village and begged all the way to the capital to seek justice from his father. I, Chen Baojia, have always been a person who would help others when I see injustice. I sent my guards to beat up those people, but I was also thinking about my sister, so I did not show up myself. Only after those bullying noblemen were beaten to the point of crying for their parents and running away in fear did I tell the driver to return home. The young man staggered after the carriage. The driver couldn't bear it, so he stopped the carriage and told him to go away quickly. However, he bowed respectfully outside the carriage. The young man said in a cold voice, "Excuse me, what is your name?" I didn't expect that the beggar looked as if he wanted to repay my kindness. I felt a little pity, so I lifted a corner of the brocade curtain and threw a purse to him. There was a lot of silver in there, enough for him to have food and clothing for several years. The person leaving the city was Chun Baojia, so the person in the carriage of the princess's mansion could only be Qin Jining. I motioned to the maid in the carriage and she answered for me. "This is Princess Jining." Inside the room, Wei Jingsong stared into my eyes and lowered his hands. "It turns out that the person that day was really you. I didn't know if I could do it again." Seeing him so distraught, I just found it ridiculous. It turns out that in my previous life, I was married to him for 10 years, but I couldn't even resist a bit of kindness he gave me. I once begged for Wei Jingsong's love and doubted myself countless times, wondering if only someone like Jining was worthy of being loved. But I didn't expect that Wei Jingsong's love was so cheap. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, everything was clear. The past is gone like smoke. I looked at him calmly. "Let me tell you, let's start again. We first met on the long street. I saved you and brought you back home, but you turned your back on me and ruined my reputation. You killed several people in my princess's mansion, used sweet words and flattery to use me to take on everything for you. Later, you became successful and sent thousands of arrows through my heart." "No, it's not like that." Wei Jingsong looked at me in panic. "It's wrong. Everything is wrong." His eyes were confused for a moment. "Qin Baojia, I didn't know it was you who saved me that year." He looked me in the eye, as if eager to verify. If I had discovered it earlier, if I had known that it was you. There was real regret in his dark eyes. "Is it possible for us to start over?"
No.
I answered him decisively. "Now you say this just because you are a jerk." Wei Jingsong thinks highly of himself. He is afraid of being damaged in this backyard, so he tries desperately to climb out. So along the way, the less he can get, the more precious it is. Wei Jingsong shook his head. "I once had a dream. I dreamed that I had a love affair with you. In the dream, you treated me so well." There was a hint of expectation in his eyes. "That night in the tea house, I flirted with you, but you just ignored it. Could it be that you just couldn't bring yourself to kill me?" Hearing him say this, I suddenly laughed. "Yes, after that night, I wanted to order someone to kill you directly, but later I decided to give up." I looked down at him and said, "Do you think you can live for a few more days in your current state? Master Wei, think about this. It seems that you have not recovered from your illness since that day in the tea house." His brows sank and surprise flashed in his eyes. I patiently explained his confusion, because Master Wei's stepmother replaced Master Wei's medicine. Over the years, she treated you as her own son, but you murdered her child. Wei Jingsong suddenly raised his head and looked at me in disbelief. "How do you know?" "The medicine Madame Wei gave you was carefully selected by me and purchased at a great price. It will make your body gradually weaker until you die of exhaustion." The secret that Wei Jingsong murdered his half-brother was told to me by himself in his previous life. By that time, Wei Jingsong was already the chief minister of Dian and no longer had to fear anyone. And in his eyes, Qin Baojia, was nothing more than a lowly prisoner. After enduring for 10 years, Wei Jingsong finally got to be proud of himself. He told me in a condescending manner how hard it was and how unscrupulous he had been in order to climb to this position. Among them, there is this one. Wei Shongshu's second wife was kind-hearted. After she became the mistress of the Shongshu mansion, she treated Wei Jingsong as her own son. But he still felt that it was not enough. In order to consolidate his position as the legitimate son of the Shongshu mansion, he poisoned his own brother after Madame Wei became pregnant. I'm afraid Wei Jingsong would find it hard to believe that the secret that had never been revealed in his previous life has become the knife that sends him to hell in this life. 17. After leaving Wei's house, I felt happy from the bottom of my heart. Most of the crimes I committed in my previous life were not committed by me. But I, Qin Baojia, am not a kind person. It would be too easy for Wei Jingsong to die a quick death. It would be better to let him die slowly in the backyard that he hates the most, at the hands of the woman he despises the most. Everything is a result. You should enjoy the rest of your life here. These were the last words I said to Wei Jingsong. In the carriage, Sueju asked me, Princess, the second princess is very crazy, but Sueju always thinks that her madness is a little strange. I lifted the brocade curtain and looked out the window. Shungan Street was crowded with people, just like in my previous life. Does it matter whether you are really crazy or pretending to be crazy? Sueju was a little confused. I looked at her and said casually, the important thing is that I will make her live as a lunatic for the rest of her life. I expended too much energy today, and when I returned to the princess's mansion, I smelled a mouth-watering aroma. Shen Yunshuan led me into the pavilion in the back garden with a smile, and he actually prepared a table of delicious food himself. The real smell of fireworks permeated my eyes and eyebrows. Shen Yunjin was standing beside me, looking at me as if he were offering a treasure. I suddenly felt a little sad. I am not the Chen Baojia of my previous life. In this life, I have done many vicious things that he could hardly imagine. Shen Yunhua put a piece of fish into my bowl and said, What are you thinking about? Chen Baojia, this is a masterpiece that I have spent a lot of time learning. You look like you can't eat it. It's really disrespectful to me. I took a deep breath and decided not to hide anything. I told him everything. What do I think it is? Shan Yunxie reached out and tapped my head, then raised the corner of his lips slightly. Who do you think passed the secret medicine you sent to the Wei mansion to you? Do you think Chun Jining really went crazy just because she was frightened? I was silent for a long time, choking with emotion. Eat your meal, Shen Yunshuan. Chen Baojia, you are a mean person who suddenly became rich and you are taking advantage of others. He had a charming face and was laughing so hard that he was bent over. In a trance, I saw the young man in red on horseback at the border that year, waving at me. Chen Baojia, if you have no one to marry you in the future, I will condescend to marry you. Oh, I really fell into his hands. End of text. Extra. Excerpt from Shun Yunjin's diary. Previous life. 20th year of Zhao Yuan. Chen Baojia is the dumbest girl I have ever met. She is very stupid and can't do any of the arts like playing the piano, chess, calligraphy, or painting. But she can fight, and I admire her very much. The 21st year of Zhao Yuan. Shun Yunjin. Oh, Shun Yunjin. Next time you fight with someone, you must hide it from Chen Baojia. That kid has been learning to be a hero lately, and he won't stop until he beats someone to death. Autumn of the 21st year of Zhao Yuan. The young master said he wanted to marry her, but she was not happy about it and said she would never marry a vulgar warrior. Okay, I'll go back and recite the homework assigned by the master by heart. Yen Yao 8 years. Chen Baojia fell in love with a useless man who couldn't do anything, drank 8 bottles of wine, and planned to snatch his bride. Yen Yao 8 years. After my father broke one of his legs, he decided to fast for 3 days, but the food tasted so good that he gave up. 10 years of Yen Yao. Chen Baojia was in trouble again and was very angry. Chen Baojia, I will fight for you in the north and south, so please stop looking at those concubines, okay? Autumn of the 12th year of Yen Yao. Chen Baojia has changed.
Can't sleep.
Don't believe it. Winter of the 18th year of Yen Yao. Chen Baojia, please wait for me. Over.